Hey, everybody, welcome to this week's Fateless podcast episode. Joining me from the Fateless team is going to be Simon and Dirk. And then our special guest for this episode is going to be MrSneakyy. What's up, man? Go ahead and introduce yourself and give the spiel on your content and all that good stuff.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on as well, because I've been honestly so excited to be on here, because I've probably watched every podcast and commented on each one. It's been a long time coming. But yeah, my name is MrSneakyy. My channel primarily does mobile gaming. I've been covering Call of Dragons for the longest of time, but recently I've dived into Age of Empires Mobile. That's where a lot of people probably know me. I do just informational guides and anything to do with the game. So that's kind of like my whole channel, but my main background leading up to that, because I've been doing YouTube for about 2 years now. Before, I was just a general gamer, beta testing games, as most people try to do for their favorite games, like reading Reddit posts or whenever they see the Facebook post for them. But yeah, that's kind of like my general background and stuff to do with me.
Awesome, man. Yeah, love to hear it. And I still play Age of Empires 4 on the PC. So yeah, that's awesome. Simon, I guess I'll pass it to you to kick off the topic. I know we were going to talk about some like beta testing and stuff revolving around there.
I guess we're massively right now gearing up for a beta. In fact, before that, we're kind of doing a couple of pre-releases. Like we're going to be showing off our cinematic around GDC, which is kind of like end of March, which is very cool. And that's, again, gearing us up for enhancing the kind of like beta experience and stuff like that. I guess it would be interesting to get your take, Sneakyy, on beta releases, things that you've been involved in the past, as a kind of initial one, and then we kind of talk more specifically around what we're doing with Godforge.
Yeah, so some of the games I actually tested back in the day were like really early on were MOBAs. So some MOBAs that actually died, like Dawnguard and Strife, if you ever heard of them. I had a really good time testing them. This is to do with like champion mechanics, how it interacted in the map. Is there a way you could abuse one mechanic to potentially go through environments that you shouldn't be going through, right? Because that could cause obviously a gameplay disadvantage. But then later on, I tested Anthem. Everyone should know Anthem. It was a hyped game. I was looking forward to it, but it didn't go again really well down on the EA Storm. But more recently, I've been testing Riftstorm, and I've been doing technically Age of Empires mobile testing, because they do have their own Pioneer test server, which is pretty cool. They do it in a variety of ways. I think for every test that I've done for different games, and it seems like depending on the game you're technically making, the way you should be testing the game definitely differentiates through all of them, because you can't be testing, for example, a MOBA the same as like a mobile game like Age of Empires Mobile, because of access of maybe like your gear or your heroes and all the leveling you need and that. So yeah, I've done a decent amount of testing back. It's been fun times.
So what's interesting to me then, so we had a bit of a chat about this before we got going, but people call different parts of game development different things. So we're planning a beta where it's literally like we want people to come in and test the systems we've built so far, the kind of like core loop of player progression or hero progression, I guess, some of the sort of dungeon mechanics, to make sure they feel good. So for some people, that might even be an alpha. Probably is an alpha in today's kind of like terminology. I know, Dirk, you've got some strong views on this.
Yeah, I can feel Dirk starting to bubble up here.
I was just joking, because there's always been like that kind of like seeing like an arms race and what they're calling your testing phases now. Because it used to be about the beta test, and the beta test was usually closed beta, and that was something you have to sign up for. You'd probably be that closely following the game. You're really excited to get in, and you go into it with the expectation that the game was not complete. You are testing systems like what we need, and that you would actually be actively reporting bugs. Like usually when you would join a beta, they'd give you like some sort of like form or something in a digital form that you'd be able to fill out and actually report bugs. Now I feel like eventually that turned into like closed beta was that, and then open beta was like the stress test of the servers, and then open beta became just soft launch. It was like companies find out they can be like, well, there might be a lot of bugs when we release, but let's call it a beta. And then we just get to avoid all flack on that.
Well, I feel like oh, sorry, go ahead. I'll let you finish.
Oh yeah, which then that led to and if beta is now just like the secret word for launch, then what is the actual testing phase supposed to be? And I feel like now that's alpha, but then You can also sell the alpha now by calling it an early release. So there's, it's just like, it's so messy now what you have to call it. So what would have been a beta is now going to be probably called an alpha, but it's not.
Yeah, because actually what we're trying to do is test the game. It's not like, oh, we're trying to get an early monetization thing going here. It's literally like, we want people to play the game, and we're very lucky to have this huge community of people really excited about playtesting the game, right? And being involved. But there is definitely a disconnect between playtesting and release here, because I even see it in the Discord, perhaps people that are a bit newer into the fray, and they're like, when am I going to get to play this game? And, am I keeping all of my stuff from beta right the way through to launch? And honestly, that for our first phase, that is definitely not the vibe. The vibe is, does this game feel great to you to play? And if not, what do we need to fix so that when we actually launch, this game feels really amazing? Brad, sorry, you had something to say as well.
Oh, and it's fine. You're good. I was just gonna piggyback off what Dirk was saying. Is that now I'm seeing the trend switch to devs putting a game in early access for like 6 years. Like Valheim is still early access.
Yeah,
Valheim came out in like 2020. It's like 5 years ago.
It's
So,
run its
like,
course. Yeah, it's peaked and like come down.
Yeah.
It's a cult classic now. Like,
So what's happening now is the launch of a game is early access, and then the release is the expansion pack, basically. Like that's
Yeah.
kind of like what's so like back in the day, Diablo 2 would have had been in early access for 2 years, and then the release would have been the expansion pack, like Lord of Destruction is kind of what it's in the way it's going now. But Sneakyy, I'll let you jump in there based off of kind of what Simon was saying.
Yeah, so I 100% agree, because the thing is, back in the day, you could clearly differentiate what an alpha were to what a beta were, because back in the day, like, an alpha was pretty closed off. Not many people had opportunities to obviously play in it, but the whole point of it was the game was at a very foundational level, and we knew there was going to be bugs. We knew there was going to be every glitch known to man, but that alpha was the first kind of like brute force of addressing those things. And then you get to the like beta phase where you believe you've got covered, the majority of the main bugs, but you kind of open up the audience, because obviously more eyes on the game makes it easier to find problems. Like, it's just as simple as that, right? And then it keeps expanding. But we are in that world now where you just have an early access, or they make you pay for somehow the beta of it. And I played like Call of Dragons, as I said in my channel, and that kind of did the same thing, where you could play the game early on, and then it came out, but it was still like like beta. Like, they were still making parts of the map, and they were still making parts of the technically core game, which was like, I think, like just a general trend you see nowadays.
I do get it, by the way, though, because like game dev is long. It's really long, and we've been in works now for a good couple of years, and we've got our kind of like core systems starting to be locked in, but we're still building environments, we're still building bosses, we're still building heroes. And at some point you have to just say, well, we've got a strong enough core of a game that we can bring players in and they can have an enjoyable experience. But ultimately what happens now is like, well, the game's now in live ops, and what probably was your vision of this was something we were going to launch with now becomes, check out this great feature we've just given you guys whilst you're playing the game. It's like a live ops drop. I guess, MrSneakyy, like, what would be your vision of what a beta should look like from a game like this from us? What would you like to see in May as kind of like core experience?
So that's interesting, because it depends on the route you want to go, right? Because at the end of the day, you could just ship a beta off, which is the base game. Say you let a player experience the leveling aspect of the game for maybe a week, and then after that week you kind of unlock more aspects of the game, and you maybe just send them a mail with just a tons of rewards, right? So you could just get them to that stage, make them test a little bit more, and you could do it that route, and that'd be fun. And I think people would have a better idea of what the game was about. But to me, I always think like a beta test, especially for the game company, should be all about making sure the game is right and it's working and it's fixed, it's polished, right? Because at the end of the day, you don't want to be doing all these tests and then the game comes out and all the same bugs that people, technically could have said back in the beta is still there. Like it's one of the worst things you hate.
We're doing a build right now, so we've got an internal build that we are playtesting, basically getting it ready for an event that's coming up or that Sham's visiting. And he's got the build on the phone. We're literally all playtesting, and it is literally like the bug list, right? It's kind of like, oh, we fixed this, but that broke this, and we've done this, and that broke this. But it starts to feel like, week by week, the game just feels more and more like a game. Especially, I don't know, Dirk, how you feel. Have you been playtesting? But it feels to me like, damn, now we're seeing a game come to life, which, okay, it doesn't have enough levels and enough kind of depth to it right now, but it does feel like we're playing a game which is pretty polished in the genre.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like obviously features aren't there, so you're not playing like the game, but you can feel like, you're watching the heroes run out, like doing all their moves now in their orders, and like that's mostly working really well now. It does feel pretty good. So it's like all the theory crafting we've had since like freaking almost 2 years ago now is like it's like seeing it actually work out and like, yeah, okay, this is how we expected it. This is good. Yeah, it is nice to be at that point.
That's why. And Simon, just like the biggest comment we're gonna get on a video like this is like you had mentioned May. Is that gonna be the first time that players are gonna be able to play, or is that gonna be more of a private thing where it's like invite only?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, and actually, we're being fully transparent. We thought this was going to come more like April, and we had to go back to May just because of really actually it's more about assets, having enough environments fully completed, put in the game, having enough characters with like full animations and VFX, like all of those things are actually what take time, because it's almost like this domino effect. You need the heroes concepted to go into 3D, to get animated, to get VFX done, and then implementation and then polish. And the polish piece takes quite a lot of time. But yeah, so May would be kind of like the first time we bring like the first cohort of beta testers in. We've got over 30,000 people signed up. Certainly the aim is to have as many of those that want to be involved, but probably not from the start. So we'll probably do a few thousand at a time, get them in, make sure that there's no obvious kind of like flaws in what we're doing, because it's also a first impression, right? It's also a first impression of the game, which is why we don't have that many people playtesting right now, by the way, because clearly there's a ton of bugs and stuff. But yeah, it's a first impression, and we want to make sure that with every group that comes through, that first impression is even slicker. It's pretty much going to be the whole dev team just fixing bugs, improving experience, making sure that everything is as slick as possible for that kind of early experience. And then actually, so throughout the probably May, June, we'll have a ton of feedback. So we'll be collecting metrics around what areas of the game do people stop playing on, how long are people coming in and actually playtesting for, are people coming back the next day to go again, all of these different things. So we start to test various metrics, which informs us where there's pain points or where the game doesn't feel good, honestly. And then that kind of like evolves. So hopefully by the end of the beta test, basically anyone who's signed up will have had a spot and played as much as they wanted to, or a decent amount, for us then to move on to kind of like that soft launch phase, which is coming more towards Q3, Q4 in the year, probably more like Q4, honestly.
Great, thanks, Simon.
I'm just interested.
Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, I'm interested as well, because I know that, Brad, you've done some playtesting, and Sneakyy, you've done some playtesting. Like, how long were you in the game for? Were you given kind of like endless access in a beta, or were you given like pockets of time, fed back, closed it off, a bit more like what I'm seeing with, Ashes of Creation right now and things like that?
Okay. Do you want to start, Sneakyy?
I can do. Do you want? So for me, for Anthem and Age of Empires Mobile, it's full access. So kind of they give you the game and they allow you to test the game technically 24 hours a day for X amount of days, and that's just how they did it. So, you know, for right now, Age of Empires Mobile is doing a like big test on, I think, their 1.4 patch, making sure these brand new stores like the Gleaming Store works and stuff, and even allowing players to have like max 120 heroes, right? Just so you can test, you know, like a 1v1, which is really cool. I could test this formation without investing into it technically in the real game. So I've got some sort of, you know, feel for it there. And like I say, Anthem was the same, and Anthem is a completely different game. It's like playing Destiny 2, right? So but that was the same. You could play that 24 hours, go flying around and just have fun, but the aim was to try and break the game, like break the game and report it. And it's like, it's a weird thing. I don't know like about Brad, but like I kind of love that aspect of like being tasked with just like breaking the game. Like, can you just break my game and tell me what you've broken about it? It's like really fun and an interesting way of like approaching things.
Okay. Yeah, great. I had probably 3 main experiences recently. 2 with Blizzard and then 1 with King Arthur. With Diablo 4, it was kind of crazy because we got like a private copy of the game, and your whole screen was filled with barcodes. That way, if any footage leaked, they knew who it was. So you had like
really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It was kind of annoying because you're trying to play and the whole screen is just a big series of numbers, like a barcode. But that was fun.
Right.
And then you're like on DM with people from Blizzard and letting them know kind of, you know, bugs you're encountering and stuff like that. And then I
So
I
they
flew out
set
in
up each account personally then, did they?
Yeah.
So it's literally got your
Yep.
barcodes on it, like they would know.
Yeah, there was like a repeating 12-digit number that was just a wallpaper on your screen while you're playing.
Okay.
Yeah, because Blizzard was like, if anything leaks, we're gonna know who did it. And
Sure.
and then I did it in person for Warcraft Rumble, which was also a wild experience because you'd walk into the Blizzard like studio and you literally had to check your phone in, and they locked it in like a safe. So like, so you're playing in person, and they make sure you don't have a phone on you or anything. But
Fort Knox.
yeah, exactly. But then they were looking for feedback. You know, what mechanics were fun, and they had you play co-op and stuff like that. But yeah, so I never did kind of like the stuff Sneakyy was doing. I was more like testing mechanics and helping figure out what's fun and what isn't. It sounds like you were doing more like bug reporting.
But what stage is that? Because that sounds like you were testing almost like what we would class as a basically finished game.
Yeah, with Diablo 4, we could only do like the leveling, like the campaign. We couldn't do the end game. And then Warcraft Rumble, we were doing like just normal games. Like we weren't leveling up cards or minis, they're called in that game. And then for King Arthur, I went to an in-person thing in California for them, and they were mainly just having us do like the summoning and giving feedback on like the core mechanics and how the cooldowns work and how the abilities are structured, because they were still like a year and a half away from release. So we didn't get to like play test the mechanics as much.
And did you feel like from where you had those playtesting sessions to like release, did you feel like the sort of feedback you were given was heard and implemented, and you know the game's almost released in a completely different guise almost?
No. There was some instances where I could see some red flags, and I was kind of warning them like, but you know, yeah, I mean, but yes and no. Like some of the things were addressed, but it is funny because you're kind of able to get a first pass, and it's very important to get that right, because you can kind of tell within an hour of playing like if a game's going to be successful or not. You know, all of us here have played hundreds of games, and you can kind of tell within a couple hours if it ropes you in or not.
And what do you think? What is that magic sauce though? Like how? Yeah, because I think you're right. We obviously we play a ton of games, and probably within 15 minutes, you're like, I know if I'm going to like this game or not.
Yep.
Yeah. What do you think that is? What's the magic sauce that kind of says yes or no to you?
For a mobile game, it needs to feel alive. Like, you know, you look at Clash Royale and why it was so successful. You're able to like share replays with your clan, and you're able to share decks with your clan and copy and paste and use what a clanmate is doing. and watch your replays back and see your match history. And Warcraft Rumble had none of that. And that's why it just didn't quite capture what Clash Royale did. Even though Warcraft Rumble, the mechanics of it, it's actually a very good game. They just didn't kind of hit that magic sauce of making it feel as alive when you're in game.
Sorry, Derek, I cut across here. What you saying?
Oh, yeah, I was just saying it. I mean, I guess I wouldn't want to put the expectation out that for our beta test, we'll be flying all the beta testers out and places to live events. It sounded more like what they're doing is getting content creators out there to get kind of their opinions before they're actually making content, because they don't want all the content to come out being like, this game is just horrible. Oh my God, pass.
Yeah.
So they're probably trying to get engaged.
It's kind of true, but also we do want to do some, probably just before the beta goes out, some like over the shoulder type sessions with, it might only be like 50 players or whatever. And we're not going to be flying tons of people around, but people that are local and available, we definitely want to get that sort of feeling nice and early, again, before we put a beta out, because it's really important, actually. Things which we think are just intuitive aren't necessarily intuitive, and we've seen it. We were at Gamescom, we've had the demo on the phone, so the demo just kind of like showing off a couple of levels, and instantly we were like, people don't get that they've got an ultimate to use, like they just can't see it, and we're like, dude, why are you not selecting that? Look, there's an arrow. but it's just like, they're just not seeing it. So that over-the-shoulder type of instant feedback is actually massive before we get into that sort of stage. It's interesting. And actually, what we then do is we go back to the drawing board and we're like, right, what do we need to do to fix this thing? Like, we've just seen that literally nobody used their ultimate without us saying, press this, do that. So we then go back as like a design team. We're like, right, how do other games do it? What do we think? What do we need to do? And then for that particular, we're like, it needs to be like a light. People need to be like drawn to it as if lost to like a flame type of fire. Yeah.
It's true, because it's one of them things as well where you'll notice, even if you give your test, for example, to certain players, that they'll figure out certain bugs pretty quickly too, because like something that I found out, which was kind of interesting, obviously certain games are built on certain engines, right? And you get into that whole mechanic and then you start to realize, oh, well, if this is built on the same engine, sure, I can break it in the same way. And it was like a really kind of infamous thing that happened like in Destiny 2 like era, was you could break through environments with the Sparrow, which was kind of crazy because it allowed you to see DLC that wasn't even in the game yet, but you could do that, right? But with that same knowledge, you could apply that, because it's technically using like an animation to break through forcefully through a barrier. You can apply that to different games, right? And you could do that to Anthem, which I did loads of times to make sure it was, blocked. So you are right in the aspect that you can give a player, like especially a small group of players, the test, and you'll be intrigued to see how they're able to find so many bugs because of similar games they've played in the past, and just how they're able to go, okay, I can probably force this menu to break by just doing this, like just hard forcing something through. So it's one of the things I think is you're doing pretty good, patching it out.
Yeah. Would you be keen on a kind of in-person come and play test Sneakyy? Is that something you'd be down for?
I would happily do that.
Yeah,
a doubt. If you just tell me a date and a time and I'll be there.
and I learned from doing it at these different in-person events that it's actually, like, even from a business perspective, it's cost effective, because when you get all these creators and people together, now they're kind of naturally, organically talking. You get me and Darth there for Warcraft Rumble, and it's like, dude, we should start a clan. Like, we should do a collab. We should make a channel. And they don't have to pay for any of that. This is just organic conversations that happen when you get people together and they want to team up and they want to do content and they kind of get excited for the launch of the game. So yeah, it would be great if we could actually pull something like that off.
Yeah. I know that when we launch our kind of like our normalized PvP mode, and originally it was going to be on launch. It's probably not going to be on launch anymore. We're going to go for the kind of like normalized roguelike on launch, and then the PvP will come a bit later. But we definitely want to do that at an event. You know, it's like a big streamer stroke content creator,
Sign me up.
pounded it out. Yeah, like I just think
Sign
such
me
a
up.
fun like experience, right? Firstly, getting all that group together is always fun anyway. Those type of LAN events are cool. And actually, when we started to look at the cost of going to somewhere like a Gamescom and having a stand, you're talking like hundreds of thousands of dollars to do that. It's actually cheaper to get a bunch of content creators that are really passionate about what you're doing in a space, literally hire somewhere, create an environment around it, even like create this type of, let's say we went for like an Avalon themed type of area, get a couple of people in cosplay, like all of that is way cheaper than having a stand at Gamescom. So that direction, where I feel like it probably suits our community even more anyway, is quite interesting. So sounds like you'd be down for that though.
Yeah,
Sneakyy.
definitely. I think like kind of like, I wouldn't say segueing, but adding to that is like my prior past, like me and Dirk were kind of like having a little bit of fun with like Magic the Gathering, right? Because I kind of look at your game, especially like the heroes, and even when I'm playing like King Arthur right now, I'm looking at these heroes as if I'm looking at a magic card and being like, okay, these are your abilities on my turn. How can I interact with it on your turn, right? And it's crazy because like playing Magic the Gathering, or people who play Pokemon, right? Because that's super popular right now, which is crazy. And then there's Yu-Gi-Oh! And all these other like trading card games. When you go to these events, the social dynamic and just meeting people and just playing the game there, it is so unmatched. It's an experience you never thought you'd truly love until you try it for that first time. So like the fact that you could go to the social space for Godforge and play the game, like you say, and like meet other people that are really passionate, I think is a really good direction, because it does create that community that will live and die by the game at the end of the day. That's how I feel about it, because that's how those communities have kind of been brought up over especially like the 20+ years Magic the Gathering's been going on for.
Yeah, I guess yeah, got that.
I was gonna say, I love that you actually kind of mentioned that, because I haven't heard too many people say that. But for me, this genre as well scratches the same itch that Magic does. When you say you look at each hero like a Magic card, and I mean they're very similar. It's like Magic cards essentially were like the first gotcha as well, right? You buy random packs. So there's kind of like I don't know, I think a lot of overlap that maybe gets overlooked in between the genres. And so we've been trying to like look at like the card games in general for inspiration for different like game modes and whatnot within our game as well too. So you should enjoy that. And then obviously live play. Simon was saying we want to have a live normalized PvP arena. Like the dream would be if it was an esport, but at least just something that is fun to play with your friends. Like Sham and I, played tons of FNMs. Just a blast to get together and play card games, and being able to like, I guess, facilitate that within a mobile game, I think is like a great step to take.
Yeah, a buddy of mine actually. So we grew up playing games like Hero Quest, but it was, in fact, he rebought that game. He lives up the road from me. Rebought that game, and he's like, "There's not enough nerds like in our life locally to play this game with. Like, we need some more like-minded people." And obviously, that's why games like this, if we can get that same sort of spirit, but online, where you can get with communities of people that want to do the same stuff as you, that's why we're so community focused, honestly, because we want a whole bunch of our game modes to at least need to have someone around you to enjoy the game mode with. Like we want for that to be quite high in our priority list, I'd say. A lot of the features we're kind of like designing out, it's like, right, okay, what's the kind of clan or guild or whatever we're going to call it in the end, vibe around this? Like how does it make an impact to other players that you're playing with? And I don't know, maybe that's a dangerous direction, because also some people are playing it on their phone and they're just very solo players. But I definitely, if I think about like some of the best experiences I've had in gaming, it's, it goes back to the days where it's like 5-man raiding with buddies on like World of Warcraft, or playing Clash of Clans, where it's like, we're talking about the next hit you're going to do And it's like, right, what prep did you do? Do you want to try my base first? And like, it's us interacting together. And then you go into fight and it's like, right, I'm watching. You see this kind of like, I don't know if you play Clash of Clans, but in the top, it shows you how many people are watching your fight. And like, oh crap, and they're like 20 of the clan watching me try and take down their leader. It's like, I don't want to make a mistake type of thing, but it's fun. It's fun as well, you know? So yeah, that's the type of energy, the type of feeling that we would want with some of our different game mates.
Yeah, it's a good shout out because Clash Royale does that too. When you're playing a match, it'll show you up in the top right, like, oh geez, I have 4 people watching me. Like, so you're right, that is a good social dynamic. It'd be cool if we could bring that to our game. Like, you're doing live PvP, and there's like a message that pops up in your clan, like, Hellhades just started a match. You know, click here to watch, and someone could pop in. Yeah, that'd be really cool.
Yeah, definitely. And some other like fun stuff, like, you know, Hearthstone's done this forever. Just like trash talking, but through the emoji, so it's not like totally toxic. You know,
I'll squelch you in game now. Don't.
You're right. Yeah, that's my favorite thing of Clash Royale is you get ahead and you start spamming emojis. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just there, like,
it's almost like,
really?
I'm invincible at this point. Like,
it's always good because it's always the spammer at the end of the day that loses the game.
yeah,
I'm
that's
telling you.
it. Yeah, it's like actually my son. He's the sort of guy that would start spamming way too early, and you're like, dude, you have not won yet. You do not see my cards.
Those are the best
that's what
wins when you
spam
come back.
goes to open.
Yeah, it's like straight one shot.
Yeah,
Now
that'd
he's
be a
spamming,
good bit of BM. A good bit of BM is always good in any game. Like, when anyone says you need a little bit, 'cause it's that competitive banter that really does make those moments too, where you just like, Jesus, I'm about to lose, and they all start roasting you, and then it is like almost Yu-Gi-Oh style top card, heart of the cards, and it pulls, and you're like, oh yeah, and you just answer it, and it's the perfect moment every time. Like, I love it.
And would you say that's your favorite kind of genre? The
Some are, yeah. I definitely say TCGs are. I just like strategy games, but definitely TCGs because you can just have the most wildest games playing trading card games, and like especially if you play it like Magic, because I play Commander too. Like, you can play games where you're just like generating like 1,000 hydras, and then everyone's like, why are you generating 1,000 hydras? Just because I can. So it's one of those fun kind of gamers that you definitely fall in love with. So I definitely think it probably is in like my top 2 definitely favorite genres.
Yeah. What about you, Dirk? I know you've played obviously a ton of Magic. Do you like delve into other games? Yeah, other similar games.
Yeah, a lot of different genres. I've always played tons of fighting games with my buddies, like going back to like Smash Melee with Sham, but then Street Fighter with another group of guys. A lot of Destiny 2 actually with Dane. It's like when we originally started together. Yeah, I finally like, oh, we're both into this game, and we just played like pretty hardcore for a while. And then yeah, actually now playing a lot of Deadlock, which actually, I guess on topic, Deadlock is in its early access alpha stage.
Is it? Is that a roguelike?
No, it's like kind of like Dota or League of Legends, but mixed with a third person shooter. So it's and like it's mechanically very solid as a shooter. So it's yeah, it's tremendous fun. I guess as a you forget that it's an alpha test, I guess, and I don't even know what that means anymore. But it's like invite only, even though it's anyone can invite anyone anytime. So it's open invite. And then you get in. I guess you're not really reporting bugs ever, but I'm assuming most of that is automated now. I'm hopefully, I don't know.
You hope.
Like I said, you forget you're in it though, and I think even and this is actually a problem I think with the studios. I think they forgot that they were alpha testing because they were spending a ton of time each week. They put themselves on this like committed. Every 2 weeks we're gonna do a balance patch or a patch, and I think it was meant to be their time to put in like you know, because you're like you said, you're in live ops at that point. I think they're meant to be putting in new content, but they would fall short of content goals, and instead they're just doing a bunch of balance changes. But doing balance changes when you only have half your roster is completely pointless. And meanwhile, they're also trying to like change abilities around in ways that make them more fun. Like some abilities, like for a while, grenades just felt gimped, and like everything is. You feel like, oh, this is way too strong, way too weak. But like they want to mess around, but then everyone's so hung up on balance, and you got like a pro scene somehow There's like
Right.
esports for this game that's in early access
In alpha, yeah.
Yeah, and like this pro scene is like putting out tier lists every other day, and this is like, and this is affecting like balance change because then the developers like, oh geez, look at all this content coming out on this, so they're putting in all this effort on balance. Just put the damn new heroes out, like who cares? And then it seemed like after Christmas, I think it caught up to him realizing like, hey, we got a lot of actual like stuff to put in this game still. We're not going to balance anymore for a while, so they have shifted gears and they're more in what you expect from an alpha, where just new content is coming out for the game, rather than treating it like oh, we're going to up some numbers here and there by 1 or 2%, like a finished product. Yeah. So, but yeah, great game otherwise though. It's, like anything that's very competitive, any game that I go into and I feel like I suck at, I always kind of want to feel like, well, I can't be a noob. I gotta like,
Yeah.
It's
you know,
not
it's
me.
gonna be a lot
It's
of
definitely not me.
a lot of room to grow.
Yeah. What about you, Brad? So I know you've played some games very hardcore, you know, to very high levels.
My most fun has always been like coming together with your team to figure out how to like beat another team. I don't know if we could pull it off in our mode, but I know like Diablo Immortal, they had like basically a League of Legends game mode where, and you had clans of like 80 people, and so they would have like a clan war, and you'd have to put together like 5 teams of 8. And that's some of the most fun I ever had, like meeting up with Darth and Veiled Shot with like spreadsheets. Okay, we've got our 80 members. What teams of 8 are we going to put together and send in? Okay, like, you know, Darth and Chosen, you guys have good synergy. You play well together. Let's put you to leading a team. Now, who are the 6 you want? And you're sitting here like in Discord with 50 people, and you're designing these like 5 teams of 8. Stuff like that has always been amazing. If we could pull that off in Godforge, like, you know, taking down like an enemy Doom Tower or something, you send in certain players to certain levels. Something like that has always been my favorite.
Yeah, cool.
So
Well, I guess we're probably rounding out really. Brad, do you want to take out the important questions?
yeah. Sneaky. So this is the most important part of the podcast.
no.
We like to ask people on the way out. You said you've watched. You may be familiar about the spiel, but if you're kind of familiar with the universe and the mythos, is there like a certain hero you are like, you know, gosh, I really hope you guys get this in the game. It would be epic. Is there something that jumps out and you can't say like Robin Hood? That's already been said about.
I can't say the hero that I created.
That's the most obvious answer. Yeah.
That is interesting because I've been recently watching, to be fair, Vikings, and I've absolutely fallen in love with that show, like to the point where I would go for the All-Father Odin myself, right, and become a pagan. So for me, I would love to see like not even gods, but like actually just like iconic heroes, right, from the Viking lore, like Ragnar Lothbrok and maybe his brother Rollo, and you could maybe down the line, which I would love to see, depending on how Godforge goes, is like, you know, you have your game content, and then instead of like kind of like how Path of Exile almost, you had like this new season, but it was like a themed season, so that might be the Viking season, you know, and it's really interesting when you get Ragnar and so forth, and then the next season's a different theme. And I was hoping to see, like I say, a more Viking heavy theme where it's all hero based. So definitely Ragnar. I'd have to see Ragnar. If I don't see Ragnar, I would be upset. He's the man. He's the G, you know.
Yeah, we're starting to get some honestly insane heroes coming through right now. Like I think we kind of went from, we're testing our pipeline, making sure we've got all the things in play, and now it's like, right, we've got to get through some of these legendaries. And honestly, it's pretty exciting actually. It's exciting stuff seeing them like starting to, and they're coming through like fast now. Do you guys feel the same? I'm like, damn, every week it's like, right, who's this one? Like, who we got next?
Yeah, it just keeps ramping up every month. It's like crazier and crazier, faster and faster. Yeah.
It was nice to see the Beowulf when I woke up. I was like, oh, we got a new one already again. Let's go.
Yeah. What's cool about him though? He's got the mouth bag in, his eyes are working. Like he's properly smirking his way around the screen at this point, like swinging his sword. It's cool. It's cool to see. Yeah.
So I've got a quick question, basically a little fun one as well, basically for you all, right? Because obviously we've been talking about testing and bugs and kind of like glitches in games. Is there been ever a game you've enjoyed playing and technically a glitch or a bug enhanced the gameplay, actually made it more fun to do that. Because obviously I knew back in the day growing up Call of Duty, and everyone loves Call of Duty, and playing Call of Duty 4 there was like the RPG jumps and the elevator bugs which you could just float up to the skies and stuff. So I was wondering if there's any games where maybe a little callback that you thought the actual bad design actually improved the game in some way.
I think Smash Melee, like I mentioned earlier, was like maybe the best example of that. It's like the entire like skill ceiling of the game is raised a lot because of mechanics of like animation cancel on landing with your block, as well as the wave dash, giving you a different move option to perform other actions while maintaining momentum in a direction. But all those like bugs and mechanics that weren't intended that add, I think, to the skill ceiling are good because of that. They don't like cheapen it. Whereas I think like sometimes you have bugs that actually just reduce the skill because it's like, oh well, you just like some like I don't know, some fighting games will have an option select where instead of having to like guess on defense, you can just do like one option select that beats everything. And like, well, that's not helping the game. Then it kind of takes it away. But yeah, I'm sure this helps.
I agree with Dirk. As long as it increases the skill, like the example I always use is back in StarCraft 1, Mutalisk stacking. It wasn't intended by the game designers. You would just send your Mutalisks in and they would spread out and attack. But then you'd see a guy like, oh, geez, this guy's really good. He's keeping his Mutalisk stacked in a clump, and you had to do it with like putting an Overlord in the group and then clicking off screen, clicking back on screen, doing that constantly to clump them up so they could really target fire. And something like that was an unintended game mechanic, but it actually increased the skill required. And I don't know if you had one, Simon, but
yeah, I'd go from a different angle. It's not really a bug; it's intended. But I actually really like some of the kind of nostalgic games where they intentionally put, like fast clear type stuff. So like, your Super Mario's where if you know the route, you're skipping basically 3/4 of the game or, almost all the game. But I just feel like that devs having fun by putting stuff in their game, hoping that, the person that absolutely like scours the game is going to find stuff. For me, that's fun. And then it's great when that then spreads to the community and they're like, crap, someone's found this. Have you seen this? And like, there's like a real buzz around it. I think that type of Easter egg is always cool.
Actually, it happened to us on the channel. You remember, Dirk, when we were playing V Rising with Sham and we were streaming, and you guys did some. I was out exploring. They did some like they accidentally crafted like this huge rat that spawned in our house, and no one could kill it. So we decided to like move our house. We're like, well, we spawned a rat.
Love it. I love
and so
stuff
Sham
like
and Dirk are like, Brad, where are you? We can't beat this thing. I'm like, you guys, are you kidding me? But yeah, this was a lot of fun. Thanks for joining us, MrSneakyy, and we will link to his channel down below. Definitely check out his content over there, and then also the links to the Discord and all that good stuff for you to stay in the loop on when these alphas and betas and all that is going to be starting. So, Dirk, Simon, MrSneakyy, thanks. It's been a lot of fun, and we'll see you soon in the next Fateless podcast episode. Cheers.